She didn't ask for mercy, she asked for murder. With a trembling voice, the waitress begged the Mafia boss to kill her abusive boss. But when he looked into her bruised face and said, "Tell me everything," what followed ignited a storm no one in that diner would survive. If you're hooked in and want to enjoy this story, go ahead and subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see where everyone's watching. Plus, tomorrow I've got another incredible story lined up, and you definitely don't want to miss it. Alright, back to the story. The storm hit 7th Street like a fist. Rain hammered the windows of the Bluebird Diner in sheets, blurring the neon signs outside into streaks of red and blue. Thunder rolled overhead, deep and threatening. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered, casting shadows that danced across the worn linoleum floor. It was nearly midnight. The diner was half empty, just a few regulars nursing coffee, a trucker hunched over a plate of eggs, and 2 young men in a corner booth who hadn't looked up from their phones in an hour. Then the door opened. Andre Moreno stepped inside, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He was unmistakable. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. His dark hair was slicked back, revealing sharp features and a jaw that looked carved from stone. Tattoos crept up from his collar, symbols everyone in this city recognized. Symbols that meant power, violence, control. He moved like a predator, slow, deliberate, aware of every person, every exit, every threat. Conversations died mid-sentence. The trucker suddenly found his eggs fascinating. The 2 men in the corner booth went rigid. Andre slid onto a stool at the counter, his movements fluid and unhurried. He didn't need to announce himself. Everyone already knew. From the kitchen doorway, Jenny Hester watched him with wide eyes. She was 26, small-framed, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform, a blue dress with white trim, was crisp and clean, but her hands trembled as she picked up a coffee pot. "Don't make eye contact. Just serve him. Get out." But as she approached, Andre's gaze lifted to meet hers, and she froze. His eyes were dark, unreadable, dangerous. They took in everything: her nervous posture, her shaking hands, the purple bruise blooming across her left cheek that she'd tried to cover with makeup. "Coffee," he said simply. "Yes, sir." Her voice barely made it past her lips. She poured, trying to keep her hands steady. The cup clattered slightly against the saucer. She set it down quickly and turned to leave. "Wait." Jenny stopped, her heart hammering. Andre gestured to the empty stool beside him. "Sit down." "I am working, I can't." "Sit down." It wasn't a request. Jenny glanced toward the kitchen, toward the back hallway where the office door was closed. Carl was in there. If he saw her sitting with a customer, especially this customer, but something in Andre's voice made her obey. She sat, perched on the edge of the stool, ready to bolt. Andre took a slow sip of his coffee, his eyes never leaving her face. "Who hit you?" Jenny's breath caught. "Nobody. I fell." "You fell." His tone made it clear he didn't believe a word. "Yes." Andre set down his cup. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating the diner in harsh white light. Something inside Jenny broke. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was the way Andre's eyes, cold and calculating as they were, held something that looked almost like recognition. Like he'd seen this before. "My boss," she whispered. "Carl. The owner. He—" Her voice cracked. Andre leaned forward slightly. "Go on." "He beats me. When I'm too slow. When customers complain. When he's drinking. Tonight was bad. Really bad. I tried to quit once, and he said if I leave, if I go to the police, he'll make sure I disappear. He has cops on his payroll. I already tried reporting him. They threatened me instead of helping." The words tumbled out faster now, years of silence spilling over. "He told me tonight was my last warning," he said. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "He said if I make one more mistake, he'll finish what he started." Andre's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something dangerous. Jenny clasped her hands together, her knuckles white. This was insane. She was talking to a mafia boss, a man whose name made people cross the street, whose reputation was built on fear and blood, but she had nowhere else to turn. She looked directly into his eyes, tears streaming down her bruised cheek. "Please," she begged, her voice breaking. "I need you to kill my boss." The entire diner went silent. The cook, visible through the kitchen window, stopped mid-motion. The trucker's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Even the rain seemed to pause. Andre studied her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he spoke, his voice soft and deadly calm. "Tell me everything." Before Jenny could respond, the office door at the end of the hallway swung open. Carl Vanzetti emerged, a heavy man in his 50s, balding, with a stained apron and the kind of face that wore cruelty like a second skin. He saw Jenny sitting at the counter, saw Andre, and his expression shifted from confusion to anger. "Jenny, what the hell are you doing? Get back to work!" Jenny flinched, started to stand. Andre's hand moved just slightly, and she stopped. Carl's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. Recognition dawned slowly. The expensive suit, the tattoos, the way the other men in the diner had gone perfectly still. His face paled, but he recovered quickly, puffing out his chest. "Is there a problem here?" Andre didn't answer. He simply turned his head, slowly, until his gaze locked onto Carl. The two men stared at each other. Carl broke first. He always did. "Jenny, register needs counting. Now." He retreated toward the hallway, trying to save face. Jenny stood, trembling. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." "Finish your shift," Andre said quietly. "Act normal. I'll handle this. But, trust me." And for reasons she couldn't explain, she did. 3 months earlier, Jenny had been desperate the day she first walked into the Bluebird diner. Desperate enough to ignore the grease-stained windows, the flickering neon sign, and the way the place smelled like old coffee and broken dreams. She needed a job. Her rent was 2 weeks overdue. Her phone was about to be shut off, and the last of her savings had gone to keeping her ancient Honda running. Carl Vanzetti had looked her up and down like merchandise, his eyes lingering too long on places they shouldn't. But he'd hired her on the spot. "Cash tips," he'd said. "Night shift pays extra. Start tomorrow." She should have known better. The first week, Carl was almost pleasant. He showed her the ropes, cracked a few jokes, even covered for her when she mixed up orders. Jenny started to relax. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Maybe she'd finally caught a break. The second week, he started touching her. Just small things at first. A hand on her lower back when he passed behind her, fingers brushing hers when he handed her plates, comments about how the uniform fit her. She told herself she was overreacting. She needed this job. She couldn't afford to make waves. By the third week, the touching turned to grabbing. He'd corner her in the walk-in freezer, pressing close enough that she could smell the whiskey on his breath. He'd grip her arm hard enough to leave marks when she didn't move fast enough. He'd whisper things that made her skin crawl, threats disguised as compliments, promises wrapped in menace. "You're lucky I gave you this job, sweetheart. Women like you, with your background, nobody else would hire you." He was right. She was Latina, undocumented on her mother's side, with a family back home depending on the money she sent every month. Carl knew all of this. He'd made her tell him during the interview, said he needed to understand her situation. Now she understood. He'd been building a cage around her from day one. The first time he hit her was on a Tuesday. She'd spilled coffee on a customer's lap. An accident. The pot had been too hot. Her hands had slipped, but Carl had exploded. He'd dragged her into the kitchen by her hair, shoved her against the industrial sink, and backhanded her so hard she'd tasted blood. "Stupid bitch, that's coming out of your tips." The cook, Marcus, a quiet man in his 60s, who kept his head down, had pretended not to see. The other waitress, Mia, had been too terrified to intervene. Jenny had learned in that moment that she was completely alone. She'd tried to quit the next day. Carl had laughed in her face. "You think you can just walk out? You signed a contract, remember? You owe me for the uniform, the training, the first week's food you ate here. You leave before you work it off, I'll have you arrested for theft." "That's not legal. You want to test me? Go ahead. Call the cops. Let's see what happens to an illegal waitress who steals from her employer." His smile had been reptilian. "I have friends on the force, sweetheart. Good friends. They'll make your life hell." She'd gone to the police anyway. 2 weeks later, after another beating left her ribs bruised and her wrist sprained, Officer Rodriguez and Officer Chen had taken her statement at the station. They'd nodded sympathetically, made her repeat the story 3 times, took photos of her injuries. They'd promised to investigate. 3 days later, Officer Rodriguez had shown up at her apartment at midnight. "You need to drop this," he'd said, blocking her doorway. "Carl Vanzetti is a respected businessman. You're making serious accusations with no proof beyond some bruises you could have gotten anywhere. Keep pushing this, and we'll have to look into your immigration status, your family's status, Understand? The message was clear. Carl owned them. Jenny had withdrawn her complaint the next morning. That's when things got worse. Carl knew she'd tried to turn him in. He made sure she understood the consequences of betrayal. The beatings became more frequent, more vicious. He'd wait until the diner closed, until the other staff had left, then corner her in the kitchen or the back office. He never hit her face at first, too visible, he'd said with a grin. But a month ago, he'd stopped caring about visibility. The bruises became impossible to hide. She started wearing more makeup, long sleeves even in the summer heat, anything to conceal the evidence of her shame. Mia had tried to help once. The younger waitress had seen Carl grab Jenny by the throat, had threatened to report him herself. Carl had fired her on the spot, then rehired her an hour later with a new agreement she could stay, but only if she kept her mouth shut about everything she saw. Mia had never spoken up again. Tonight had been the breaking point. Carl had been drinking since the afternoon shift, getting progressively angrier about something: money, suppliers. Jenny never knew and didn't care. When she'd accidentally brought him the wrong order for his dinner, he'd snapped. He'd dragged her into the kitchen, thrown her against the prep table, and struck her across the face with the back of his hand. The ring on his finger had split her cheek open. Blood had dripped onto her uniform as he'd leaned close, his breath hot and rancid. "One more mistake, Jenny. Just one more, and I'll make sure you never work anywhere in this city again. Actually, I'll make sure you never work anywhere again, permanently." The threat had been unmistakable. That's when Jenny knew. If she didn't do something, Carl Vanzetti was going to kill her. And when Andre Moreno had walked through that door, looking like death incarnate, Jenny had seen her only chance. She'd taken it. Now, as she wiped down tables in the empty diner, her hands still shaking from the encounter, she wondered if she'd just made everything infinitely worse, or if maybe, just maybe, she'd finally found someone who could end this nightmare. The rain hadn't let up. Jenny could hear it drumming against the diner's roof as she finished her shift, each drop like a countdown to something inevitable. Her hands moved on autopilot, wiping tables, refilling salt shakers, counting tips that barely added up to $30. Carl had retreated to his office after seeing Andre. He hadn't emerged since. That was almost worse than his presence. The waiting, the wondering what he was planning. The last customer left at 12:47 a.m. The cook, Marcus, nodded to her silently and slipped out the back door. Mia had clocked out an hour earlier, casting worried glances at Jenny the entire time. Now it was just Jenny and the sound of rain. And Carl, somewhere in the back. She was reaching for her coat when the front door opened. Andre Moreno stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his shoulders. Behind him, two men waited by a black Mercedes, their silhouettes barely visible through the downpour. "Your shift over?" Andre asked. Jenny nodded, unable to find words. "I'll walk you to your car. You don't have to." "I wasn't asking." Something in his tone made it clear this wasn't kindness. It was protocol. He'd made a decision, and he was seeing it through. Jenny grabbed her purse with trembling hands and followed him outside. The parking lot was nearly empty, just her battered Honda and a pickup truck that probably belonged to Carl. The rain soaked through her thin jacket immediately, but Andre seemed unbothered, walking beside her with the same calculated calm he'd shown inside. When they reached her car, he stopped. "Get in, lock the doors. What are you going to do?" "Nothing tonight." He glanced back at the diner, his jaw tight. "But I need you to understand something, Jenny. What you asked me to do back there, that's not how I work." Her heart sank. "So you won't help me?" "I didn't say that." His eyes found hers, and for the first time, she saw something beyond the cold exterior. Something almost human. "You asked me to kill someone. Everyone in that diner expected me to agree, to handle it the way men like me usually handle problems. Quick, permanent. No questions asked." "I'm sorry, I just thought." "You thought you had no other choice." His voice softened, just slightly. "And maybe you don't, but killing Carl Vanzetti solves your problem for one day. Then what? Another man buys this diner. Another boss thinks he can put his hands on his employees. The cycle continues." Jenny's voice broke. "So I'm supposed to just keep taking it? Keep waiting for him to make good on his threats?" "No." Andre stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in the darkness. "I don't kill for free, and I don't kill for the wrong reasons. But your boss? He's crossed lines that matter to me, lines I don't forgive. I don't understand." Andre's expression darkened, and for a moment, he seemed to be looking through her, into some distant memory. I knew someone once, a woman who worked in a place like this. She asked for help too. I didn't listen. I thought she was exaggerating, being dramatic. By the time I realized how bad it was, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I won't make that mistake twice, he said quietly. Hope flickered in Jenny's chest, fragile and terrifying. What are you going to do? I'm going to look into Carl Vanzetti. His business, his connections, his secrets. Men like him always have secrets. And when I find them. Andre's smile was colder than the rain. Let's just say death would be a mercy compared to what I have planned. But if the police won't help. I'm not the police. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then put it away. I just sent 2 of my men to watch this place. They'll be here every night. If Carl touches you again, if he so much as raises his voice at you, they'll know. He'll see them. He'll know I talked to you. Good. Let him know. Let him spend every second looking over his shoulder, wondering when I'm coming for him. Andre opened her car door for her. But you? You keep your head down. You act normal. You don't quit, you don't run, you don't give him any reason to think you're planning something. For how long? As long as it takes. He held her gaze. Can you do that? Jenny thought about the bruises hidden under her uniform, the threats whispered in dark kitchens, the desperate, drowning feeling of being trapped with no way out. She thought about Andre's words. Death would be a mercy. Yes, she whispered. I can do that. Good. Andre stepped back. Go home. Get some sleep. And Jenny? She looked up at him. You did something brave tonight. Stupid, maybe, but brave. Most people suffer in silence until it kills them. You fought back the only way you knew how. That matters. Before she could respond, he turned and walked toward the Mercedes. His men opened the door for him, and within seconds, the car pulled away, red taillights disappearing into the storm. Jenny sat in her Honda, hands gripping the steering wheel, rain pounding on the roof. For the first time in months, she didn't feel completely alone. She glanced in her rearview mirror and saw them 2 men in a dark sedan parked at the far end of the lot. Watching. Waiting. Andre had kept his word. As Jenny started her car and pulled out of the parking lot, she didn't notice Carl Vanzetti standing at the diner's window, watching her leave. His phone was pressed to his ear, and his expression promised violence. 2 days later, Dante and Rico had been watching the Bluebird Diner for 48 hours straight, working in shifts. They'd seen the usual drunks stumbling in for coffee, truckers killing time, the occasional cop grabbing a meal. Nothing unusual. Nothing that explained why their boss had suddenly taken interest in a rundown diner on 7th Street. Until tonight. You seeing this? Dante muttered, adjusting his position in the driver's seat. The sedan was parked across the street, hidden in the shadow of a closed auto shop. Rico leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What am I looking at? The waitress. Watch her. Through the diner's windows, they could see Jenny moving between tables, but it was the way she moved that caught their attention. Stiff, mechanical, flinching every time Carl appeared from the kitchen. Boss, said the owner, beats her, Rico said quietly. Yeah, well, I'm starting to believe it. They watched as Carl grabbed Jenny's arm, yanking her close to bark something in her face. Even from across the street, they could see her wince. When he released her, she stumbled backward, catching herself on a table. Dante's hand moved to his phone. I'm calling Andre. Wait, look. The younger waitress, Mia, according to their intel, had frozen near the coffee station. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with barely concealed terror. She looked like she wanted to intervene but couldn't bring herself to move. There's 2 of them, Rico observed. 2 women he's got under his thumb. Makes you wonder how many others. At 2:47 a.m., the diner finally emptied. The last customer paid and left. Marcus, the cook, cleaned his station and headed out the back. Mia clocked out, practically running to her car. That left Jenny and Carl. This is when it happens, Dante said, his voice tight. Boss said the worst abuse happens after closing. They watched as Carl locked the front door. Through the windows, they saw him approach Jenny. She backed away, hands raised defensively. He grabbed her by the shoulders, shaking her. Rico was already opening his door. We need to... Wait, Dante commanded. Boss said to watch. Gather evidence. We can't blow our cover yet. To hell with that. He's hurting her right now. But before either man could move, something else caught their attention. A van pulled up to the back alley behind the diner. No headlights, no company markings, just a plain white cargo van that looked like 1,000 others. "You get the plate?" Dante asked. Rico was already typing it into his phone. "Got it. Running it now." They watched as the van's back doors opened. 2 men got out heavy-set, covered in tattoos, moving with the casual violence of career criminals. They knocked on the diner's back door using a specific pattern. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks. The door opened. Carl appeared, and money changed hands. "What the hell is he buying at 3 in the morning?" Rico muttered. The men unloaded 2 large boxes from the van, carrying them inside. The exchange took less than 5 minutes. The van disappeared into the night. Dante's phone buzzed. He read the message and his expression darkened. The van's registered to a shell company, same company that's been flagged in 3 human trafficking investigations. The pieces started clicking together in both men's minds. "Call Andre," Rico said. "Right now." 20 minutes later. Andre listened without interrupting as Dante explained what they'd witnessed. When the call ended, he sat in his penthouse office, staring at the city lights below, his mind racing. Human trafficking. It made perfect sense. A 24-hour diner in a bad neighborhood, vulnerable employees with nowhere to turn, corrupt cops on the payroll. Carl wasn't just an abusive boss. He was running a pipeline. Andre's phone rang again. It was Marco, his tech specialist. "I dug into Carl Vanzetti like you asked. You're going to want to hear this. Talk." The diner's barely breaking even on paper, but Vanzetti's personal accounts show cash deposits that don't match his reported income. We're talking 60,000–70,000 a month. No way that's coming from selling coffee and eggs. What else? He's got connections to the Ruiz cartel. They've been expanding their trafficking operations up the coast. Word is they're looking for new distribution points, places to move girls before shipping them out of state. Andre's grip on his phone tightened. "And the waitresses?" "That's the thing, boss. I cross-referenced employment records. The Bluebird Diner has had 19 different waitresses in the past 2 years. 19. Most restaurants that size might see 4 or 5. Where did they go?" "That's just it. They didn't go anywhere. No forwarding addresses, no new employment records, no social media activity. They just disappeared." The silence on the line was deafening. "Jenny was next," Andre said quietly, more to himself than Marco. "She didn't just work for an abusive boss. She was working in a hunting ground. Looks that way. And boss? There's one more thing." "What?" "I found a connection between Carl Vanzetti and the Ruiz cartel you're not going to like. 5 years ago, the Ruiz cartel was involved in a hit on the east side. 3 people died. One of them was Isabella," Andre finished, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, I'm sorry, boss. I know she meant something to you." Andre stood, walking to the window. 5 years ago, he'd been too late to save Isabella. She'd been caught in the crossfire of a cartel war, collateral damage in a game she'd never wanted to play. Now Carl Vanzetti, connected to the same cartel, was destroying more lives. History wasn't going to repeat itself. Not this time. "Tell Dante and Rico to maintain surveillance," Andre ordered. "I want to know everything. Every delivery, every visitor, every phone call Carl makes. And get me everything you can find on those 19 missing waitresses." "You got it, boss. What are you planning?" Andre's reflection stared back at him from the window, his expression carved from stone. "Carl Vanzetti doesn't just run a diner," he said coldly. "He runs a marketplace, and I'm about to burn it to the ground." 4 days later, Jenny had started to believe things might actually get better. Andre's men were always their shadows in the parking lot, silent guardians she'd catch glimpses of during her shifts. Carl had noticed them too. He'd been on edge, snapping at everyone, drinking more than usual, but he hadn't touched her, hadn't even come close. For 4 blessed days, Jenny had been able to breathe. She should have known it wouldn't last. It was a Friday night, and the diner was busier than usual. Jenny was juggling 6 tables, her feet aching, her apron stained with coffee and ketchup. She'd just delivered an order to table 7 when she saw him. Andre Moreno, sitting in his usual spot at the counter. Their eyes met across the diner. He gave her the slightest nod, a silent question. "Are you okay?" She nodded back, allowing herself a small smile. That's when Carl emerged from the office. He was drunk. She could tell from the way he walked, the redness in his face, the way his eyes couldn't quite focus. He saw Andre immediately, and his expression twisted into something ugly. "You," Carl snarled, pointing at Andre. "You're banned. Get out of my diner." The conversations around them died. Every customer turned to watch. Andre didn't move. He simply took a sip of his coffee, utterly unbothered. I said, "Get out," Carl roared. "I heard you," Andre replied calmly. "I'm finishing my coffee." Carl's face turned purple with rage. He stormed toward the counter, but stopped a few feet away, close enough to threaten, far enough to avoid actual contact. Even drunk, some survival instinct kept him from touching Andre. "I know what you're doing," Carl hissed. "You think I don't see your goons watching my place? You think you can intimidate me?" "I'm not trying to intimidate you," Andre said quietly. "I'm trying to decide whether you're worth the bullet." The temperature in the room dropped. Carl laughed, but it sounded forced. Big man with his threats. "You don't scare me, Moreno. I've got friends. Real friends. People who'll make you disappear if you keep messing with my business." "Your business?" Andre set down his cup. "Is that what you call it?" Something in his tone made Carl hesitate. "What's that supposed to mean?" It means I know about the van that comes every Tuesday at 3 a.m. I know about the deposits in your account that don't match your revenue. I know about the 19 waitresses who worked here and vanished." Andre stood slowly, and despite being roughly the same height, he seemed to tower over Carl. "I know exactly what kind of business you're running." Carl's face went white. "You're crazy. I don't know what you're talking about." "Then why are you sweating?" Carl's eyes darted around the diner, landing on Jenny. His expression shifted rage, mixed with realization. "You," he breathed. "You told him." Jenny's blood turned to ice. "Carl, I didn't." "You told him." Carl lunged toward her, and for a moment, drunk and furious, he forgot about Andre entirely. He grabbed Jenny by the throat, slamming her against the wall. His hand tightened, cutting off her air. "You stupid bitch. After everything I've done for you." He never finished the sentence. Andre moved faster than should have been possible. One moment he was at the counter, the next he had Carl's arm twisted behind his back. The man's face pressed against the wall. "Let her go," Andre said, his voice deadly quiet. Carl released Jenny immediately. She collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. Andre released Carl with a shove that sent the man stumbling. "You just made a mistake." "I'll call the cops," Carl wheezed. "I'll have you arrested for assault. Go ahead. Call Officer Rodriguez, or Officer Chen. See which one shows up to arrest me." Andre's smile was razor sharp. "Or see which one refuses to come at all now that they know I'm watching." Carl's confidence crumbled. "What did you do?" "I made some calls. Turns out your friends in blue don't like being associated with traffickers. Something about federal investigations and prison time." Andre adjusted his jacket. "You're on your own now, Carl. No more protection. No more looking the other way." Carl's eyes were wild, desperate. "You don't know who you're messing with. The people I work for, they'll kill you. They'll kill everyone you care about. Let them try." The front door burst open. Dante and Rico rushed in, hands inside their jackets. "Boss, we got a problem," Dante said urgently. 3 cars just pulled up, armed men. They're surrounding the building. Carl's face lit up with vicious triumph. I told you. You're dead, Moreno. You're all dead." Andre didn't look concerned. He looked at Jenny, still on her knees, terror written across her face. "Get her out of here," he ordered his men. "Back entrance, now." "I'm not leaving you," Jenny started. "You are." Andre's tone left no room for argument. "This isn't your fight anymore." "But..." The front window shattered as a brick crashed through it. Screams erupted from the customers as they dove for cover. "Go!" Andre roared. Rico grabbed Jenny, pulling her toward the kitchen. She looked back and saw Andre standing in the center of the diner, completely calm, while Carl cowered behind the counter. The last thing she saw before Rico pushed her through the back door was Andre pulling out his phone and making a call. "It's time," he said into the phone. "Send everyone." Then the door slammed shut, and Jenny was running through the rain, Rico's hand on her arm, gunshots echoing behind them. Everything had just exploded. And somewhere in the chaos, Jenny realized Andre had known this was coming. He'd been preparing for it. He'd been protecting her from something far worse than an abusive boss. He'd been protecting her from monsters, 12 hours earlier. Andre had made his decision in the darkness before dawn. He'd spent the night reviewing everything his men had uncovered: the trafficking routes, the missing women, the connection to Isabella's death 5 years ago. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same conclusion. Carl Vanzetti wasn't just abusing his employees, he was selling them, and that couldn't stand. But Andre had also made another decision, one that went against every instinct his world had taught him. He wasn't going to kill Carl Vanzetti. He was going to do something worse. He was going to destroy him. Now at the Bluebird Diner. The diner was unusually crowded for a Saturday lunch rush. Families occupied the booths. A group of construction workers sat at the counter. 2 elderly women shared pie by the window. Normal people living normal lives, unaware they were sitting in the middle of a hunting ground. Jenny was working the floor, her movements still cautious, still waiting for Carl's next explosion. The bruise on her throat from last night was covered by a scarf, but it throbbed with every swallow. When the door opened and Andre walked in flanked by 4 of his men, every conversation in the diner stopped. But this time, Andre didn't sit. He stood in the center of the restaurant, his presence commanding every eye. "Ladies and gentlemen," Andre announced, his voice carrying effortlessly. "I apologize for the interruption. This will only take a moment." Confusion rippled through the crowd. Jenny's heart hammered in her chest. Carl emerged from the kitchen, his face already red with anger. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Get out of my diner before you what?" Andre interrupted calmly. "Call the police? Please do. I'd love to see which officers respond." Carl's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Andre turned to address the room. "My name is Andre Moreno. Some of you know who I am. Some of you probably clutched your purses a little tighter when I walked in." A few nervous laughs. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to tell you the truth about this establishment." "You can't do this," Carl sputtered. "This is slander. I'll sue you for everything." "Sue me with what money, Carl? The money from your legitimate diner that's barely breaking even? Or the money from selling women to the Ruiz cartel?" Gasps erupted throughout the diner. People started pulling out their phones. "That's insane," Carl shouted. "He's lying. He's a criminal trying to—" "Jenny," Andre said quietly, his eyes finding hers. "Tell them what Carl did to you." Every head in the restaurant turned toward her. Jenny froze. Her throat closed up. All those people staring at her, waiting, judging. She couldn't do this. "It's okay," Andre said gently. "You're safe now. Tell them." Something in his voice, the certainty, the protection broke through her fear. "He beats me," Jenny whispered. Then louder. "He beats me. When I'm too slow. When customers complain. When he's drinking. He threatened to kill me if I quit or went to the police." "Ah, she's lying," Carl screamed. "She's been stealing from the register and making up stories to cover." "Show them your throat," Andre said to Jenny. With trembling hands, Jenny unwrapped the scarf. The purple and black bruises in the shape of fingers were visible to everyone. A woman in the corner booth covered her mouth in horror. One of the construction workers stood up, his face dark with anger. "He did that last night," Andre continued, "in front of witnesses. But that's not the worst of it." He pulled out his phone, holding it up. "I have documentation of 19 women who've worked here in the past 2 years. 19 women who disappeared without a trace. No forwarding addresses, no new jobs, nothing. People quit all the time." Carl's voice was desperate now. "They don't vanish all the time." Andre's voice hardened. "They don't get loaded into unmarked vans at 3 a.m. They don't get sold to trafficking rings. You have no proof. I have surveillance footage. I have financial records. I have testimony from women who escaped." Andre stepped closer to Carl, who backed away instinctively. "I have everything, Carl. Every dirty secret you thought you buried." The construction worker who'd stood up earlier spoke, his voice rough. "I got a daughter who works nights. If you're doing what he says." "I'm not. He's making it all up." Carl looked around wildly at the customers, at the phones recording everything. "You're all going to believe a mobster over me? A respected businessman? Respected?" Andre's laugh was harsh. "Ask your employees if they respect you. Ask the 2 police officers who took your bribes right before they were arrested this morning." Carl's face went slack. "What?" "Officer Rodriguez and Officer Chen are in federal custody as we speak. Corruption charges, evidence of accepting payment to ignore human trafficking." Andre's smile was cold. "You lost your protection, Carl. You're exposed." No, Carl stumbled backward into a table. Andre addressed the room one final time. "I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to look at the evidence, to ask questions, to protect the vulnerable people in your community." His eyes swept across every face. "This diner is closed, effective immediately." "You can't close my business," Carl shrieked. "I just did." Andre's men moved through the restaurant, ushering customers toward the exits. People left quickly, some casting disgusted looks at Carl, others filming everything on their phones. Within minutes, the diner was empty except for Andre, his men, Carl, and Jenny. Carl stood alone in the center of his restaurant, breathing hard, sweat pouring down his face. His kingdom had just crumbled in front of him. "You've destroyed me," he whispered. "No," Andre corrected. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone could see what you really are." Carl's expression shifted then from fear to something far more dangerous, pure, cornered animal rage. "If I'm going down," Carl said quietly, "I'm taking everyone with me." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "It's me," Carl said into the phone, his eyes locked on Andre. "The package is compromised. Send the cleaners. Kill everyone." Jenny's blood ran cold. Andre didn't flinch. "You just made your last mistake." Outside, engines roared to life. Through the windows, Jenny saw cars, at least 5 of them, pulling up to surround the building. Carl smiled, even as tears streamed down his face. "The Ruiz cartel doesn't leave witnesses, Moreno, especially not ones who know too much." The war had officially begun. 3 hours earlier, before the diner, a special agent, Lisa Morrison, had been investigating police corruption for 6 months when the anonymous package arrived on her desk. Inside were audio recordings, financial documents, and surveillance footage that made her blood run cold. 2 officers, Rodriguez and Chen, had been on the take for years, protecting a human trafficking operation running through the Bluebird diner. The source was untraceable. Professional. Someone who knew exactly what evidence would hold up in court. Someone who wanted justice but couldn't seek it through official channels. By 9 a.m., Morrison had secured arrest warrants. By 10 a.m., Rodriguez and Chen were in custody, their badges stripped, their careers destroyed. By 11 a.m., every news station in the city was running the story. Now back at the Bluebird diner, "The Ruiz cartel doesn't leave witnesses," Carl had said, his voice trembling with vicious satisfaction. But as the cars surrounded the building, Andre remained perfectly calm. He pulled out his phone, pressed a single button, and waited. 30 seconds later, a different set of vehicles arrived, black SUVs with federal plates. FBI agents poured out, weapons drawn, surrounding the cartel vehicles before they could even open their doors. Spotlights flooded the parking lot. Megaphones crackled to life. "Federal agents, exit your vehicles with your hands visible." Carl's face drained of all color. No, that's impossible. "How did they? You really thought I'd walk in here without backup?" Andre's voice was ice. "I don't gamble with innocent lives, Carl. Only with guilty ones." Through the windows, Jenny watched as cartel members were dragged from their cars, thrown to the ground, handcuffed. The entire operation lasted less than 5 minutes. Agent Morrison herself entered the diner, flanked by 2 agents. Her eyes swept the scene, Andre and his men standing calmly. Carl collapsed against the counter, Jenny trembling by the kitchen entrance. "Mr. Moreno," Morrison said carefully, "we got your information, all of it. I assumed you would. You know I should arrest you too. Vigilante justice interfering with an investigation. But you won't." Andre's tone wasn't arrogant, just factual. "Because I just handed you the biggest trafficking bust this city has seen in a decade. Because those recordings I provided are admissible in court. Because without me, Carl Vanzetti would still be operating, and more women would disappear." Morrison's jaw tightened. She hated that he was right. "Carl Vanzetti," she said formally, "you're under arrest for human trafficking, racketeering, assault, and conspiracy to commit murder." "I want my lawyer," Carl whimpered. "You'll get one, right after we process you." Morrison gestured to her agents, who hauled Carl to his feet. "Take him." As they dragged him past Jenny, Carl's eyes locked onto hers. Even now, terrified and defeated, he tried to maintain control. "This isn't over," he hissed at her. "The people I work for, they'll find you. They'll finish what I started." Jenny flinched, but Andre stepped between them. "She's under my protection now," Andre said quietly. "And unlike you, I don't make empty threats." Carl was dragged out, still screaming threats and promises of revenge. Morrison turned to Jenny. "Miss Hester, I'll need your full statement. Everything he did, everything you witnessed. I know it won't be easy." "I recorded him," Jenny said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at her. "What?" Morrison's eyes widened. Jenny pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "I started recording 3 weeks ago. Every time he threatened me, hit me, talked about his deliveries, I didn't know what to do with them. I was too scared to go to the police again after Rodriguez threatened me. But I have them. Hours of recordings." She handed the phone to Morrison, who scrolled through the files, her expression hardening with each one she opened. This is everything," Morrison breathed. "Admissions of assault, trafficking routes, names of cartel contacts. Miss Hester, do you understand what you've done? This evidence will dismantle an entire criminal network." "I just wanted him to stop hurting people," Jenny whispered. Morrison's professional demeanor softened. "You're incredibly brave. We'll need these recordings as evidence, but we'll get you copies. And Miss Hester, you'll never have to see Carl Vanzetti again. With this evidence, he'll spend the rest of his life in prison." For the first time in months, Jenny felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. Outside, 30 minutes later, the parking lot was a circus of flashing lights and news cameras. Reporters shouted questions. Federal agents processed evidence. Cartel members sat in squad cars, their futures sealed. Jenny stood by Andre's Mercedes, wrapped in a blanket an EMT had given her, watching her nightmare finally end. Andre approached, his men keeping the press at a distance. "You okay?" he asked. "I don't know," Jenny admitted. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and he'll still be there, waiting. He's not. He's going to a federal holding facility, then prison. He can't touch you anymore." But what he said about the cartel. The Ruiz cartel just lost 23 members and their primary distribution point in this city. They're too busy trying to survive to worry about revenge. Andre's expression softened slightly. "But I meant what I said. You're under my protection. No one touches you." Jenny looked up at him, this dangerous man who'd become her unlikely savior. "Why? Why did you help me? You could have just killed Carl like I asked. Why go through all this?" Andre was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. "Because someone once asked me for help, and I didn't listen," he said finally. "I thought I knew better. I thought she was exaggerating. By the time I realized how serious it was, she was gone. Murdered by the same cartel Carl works for." "Isabella," Jenny whispered, remembering the name his tech specialist had mentioned. Andre's jaw tightened. "She was a waitress too. Different diner. Same story. I failed her. I won't fail anyone else." Before Jenny could respond, Mia, the younger waitress, came running from where she'd been giving her statement to police. "Jenny!" Mia threw her arms around her. "I heard everything. You were so brave. I'm so sorry I never helped you. I was just so scared." "It's okay," Jenny said, hugging her back. "We're safe now. We're both safe." As the two women held each other, Andre stepped back, letting them have their moment. Agent Morrison approached him. "We found something else in Carl's office. A ledger with names and dates. 19 women, just like you said. We're going to find them, Mr. Moreno. We're going to bring them home. See that you do." Morrison studied him carefully. "You walk a dangerous line." "I know. One day that line is going to disappear, and you'll have to choose which side you're on." Andre's smile was grim. "I made that choice the day Isabella died. I'm on the side of people who have nowhere else to turn. That's vigilante justice." "No," Andre corrected. "That's just justice. The system failed Jenny. It failed Isabella. It fails people every day. Someone has to fill that gap." Morrison wanted to argue, but she couldn't, because he was right. As Andre walked back to his car, Jenny called out, "Thank you, for everything." He paused, looking back at her. "You saved yourself, Jenny. You recorded the evidence. You had the courage to ask for help. All I did was make sure people listened." "Still, thank you." Andre nodded once, then slid into his Mercedes. As the car pulled away, Jenny realized something profound. She'd asked a demon for death, and he'd given her life instead. 5 days later, Jenny was starting to believe in normal again. The diner was permanently closed. Yellow crime scene tape still stretched across its doors. Federal investigators had spent days cataloging evidence, and the story had dominated local news cycles. Jenny had given her statement 3 separate times, each session draining but necessary. Agent Morrison kept her updated. Carl was being held without bail, facing charges that would put him away for life. The 2 corrupt officers had already pleaded guilty in exchange for reduced sentences. It was over. Mia had moved back home with her parents while she figured out her next steps. Jenny had taken a week off, staying in her apartment, letting the bruises fade, trying to remember what peace felt like. She'd even started to sleep through the night. That should have been her first warning. On a Tuesday morning, Jenny's phone rang while she was making coffee. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice she didn't recognize, rough and accented. You made a mistake, puta. Her blood turned to ice. Who is this? You think because Carl is locked up you're safe? You think the Ruiz cartel forgets? The voice was cold, professional. We don't forget. We don't forgive. The FBI arrested your people. It's over. It's not over until we say it's over. You cost us money. You cost us our distribution point. Someone pays for that. Jenny's hand trembled. I'm under protection. Andre Moreno. Andre Moreno isn't God. He can't watch you every second of every day. The voice paused. Tell him we have his little waitress friend, the young one. Maria? Mia? She was so easy to grab. Walked right out of her parents' house this morning. No. The word came out as a whisper. You're lying. Am I? Sounds of struggling, then Mia's terrified voice. Jenny? Jenny, please. They said they'll let me go if you... The phone was yanked away. You want to see her alive? You come alone. Tonight, midnight, to the warehouse at 1847 Industrial Boulevard. You bring police. You bring Moreno. We kill her. You understand? Yes, Jenny breathed. Yes, I understand. Good. Midnight. Come alone, or your friend dies screaming. The line went dead. Jenny stood frozen in her kitchen, the phone still pressed to her ear, her entire body shaking. Mia. They'd taken Mia because of her. Because she'd fought back. Because she'd survived. And now they were going to use Mia to finish what Carl had started. She thought about calling Andre. He'd told her to contact him immediately if anything happened. He'd left her his personal number, promised protection. But the voice had been clear. Come alone, or your friend dies. She couldn't risk Mia's life. She couldn't be responsible for another person's death. Jenny looked at the clock. She had 14 hours to decide. Save herself or save Mia. There was no decision to make. Sex. Fiero Tradiv PM. At Andre's office. Andre was reviewing expansion plans for his legitimate businesses when Dante burst in without knocking. Boss, we have a problem. Andre looked up, reading the urgency in his lieutenant's face. Talk. Mia Rodriguez, the other waitress from the diner, she's been taken. Grabbed from her parents' house this morning. No witnesses, but her mother found this. Dante placed a burner phone on the desk. Andre picked it up, his expression darkening as he listened to the recorded message. Your friend has 24 hours. If Andre Moreno or the FBI get involved, she dies. Wait for instructions. Ruiz cartel, Andre said flatly. They're retaliating. We've been trying to reach Jenny to warn her, but she's not answering her phone. Andre's head snapped up. What? We've called 6 times. No response. Rico is parked outside her apartment. Her car is there, but she's not answering the door. Andre was already moving, grabbing his jacket, his phone. Get everyone, now. If they took Mia to get to Jenny. Boss, Jenny wouldn't be stupid enough to go alone, would she? Andre's silence was answer enough. They both knew exactly what Jenny would do. She'd sacrifice herself for her friend, because that's who she was. She'd spent months being a victim, and now that she had power, she'd use it the only way she knew how, by offering herself up. Stupid, brave, selfless woman, Andre muttered. Find out where they're holding Mia. Check every warehouse, every property connected to the Ruiz cartel, and someone get me Jenny's location. If she's planning what I think she's planning. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. I'm sorry. I have to do this. Thank you for everything. Jenny. Damn it. Andre slammed his hand on the desk. She's going to trade herself. Should we call Morrison? Let the FBI handle it. Andre's eyes were cold, calculating. Already 3 steps ahead. The FBI has protocols, negotiators, waiting periods. Mia doesn't have that kind of time, and neither does Jenny. So what do we do? Andre's smile was predatory. We go to war. At 11:43 p.m., outside Jenny's apartment. Jenny had prepared as best she could. She'd written down everything she knew about the cartel, left the information on her kitchen table with a note for Andre. She'd called her mother, told her she loved her, promised everything would be okay even though she knew it was a lie. She'd changed into dark clothes, jeans, a black jacket, running shoes in case she got a chance to escape. She wasn't naive. She knew walking into that warehouse likely meant her death. But if there was even a chance to save Mia, she had to try. She'd spent her entire life being powerless. At least now, she could choose how her story ended. Jenny grabbed her keys and headed for the door. It opened before she could reach it. Andre stood in the hallway, flanked by 4 of his men, his expression thunderous. Going somewhere? His voice was dangerously quiet. Jenny's eyes widened. How did you think I don't have men watching you? You think after everything we've been through, I'd just leave you unprotected? Andre stepped into her apartment, his men following. You were going to trade yourself for Mia. It wasn't a question. I have to, Jenny said desperately. They said if I bring you or the police, they'll kill her. I can't let her die because of me. So you'll die instead? If that's what it takes. Andre closed the distance between them in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders. Listen to me very carefully. You are not going to that warehouse alone. You are not trading your life for hers. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? Tears streamed down her face. How do we save her? Andre's grip softened, his voice lowering. We save her by being smarter than they are. By not giving them what they expect. He released her, pulling out his phone to show her a map. The warehouse they specified, 1847 Industrial Boulevard, it's a trap. They're not just taking Mia. They're using her to eliminate loose ends. You, me, anyone who knows too much. So what do? We spring the trap, Andre said. But on our terms. He turned to his men. Full tactical gear. Everyone. I want snipers on the surrounding buildings, a perimeter team, and an extraction unit. We go in at 11:55 p.m. 5 minutes before they expect Jenny. And if they kill Mia when they see us coming? Dante asked. Andre's expression was grim. They won't, because they're going to be too busy trying to survive. He looked back at Jenny. You want to save your friend? Fine. But you're not doing it alone, and you're not doing it unarmed. He nodded to Rico, who handed Jenny a bulletproof vest. Put this on. You're coming with us. I don't know how to fight. You don't have to fight. You just have to survive long enough for us to end this. Andre's eyes held hers. Can you do that? Jenny thought about Mia, terrified and alone in some dark warehouse. She thought about Carl, about all the times she'd been helpless, powerless, trapped. Not anymore. Yes, she said firmly. I can do that. Andre nodded once. Then let's go get your friend back. It was 11:52 p.m. at the industrial district. The warehouse loomed against the night sky like a tombstone, 3 stories of rusted metal and broken windows, surrounded by empty lots and abandoned buildings. Perfect for an ambush. Perfect for making people disappear. Andre's convoy approached with headlights off, vehicles spreading out to form a perimeter 2 blocks away. His men moved like shadows, taking positions on rooftops, in alleyways, covering every angle. Jenny sat in the back of Andre's SUV, the bulletproof vest heavy on her chest, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through. Through binoculars, Dante surveyed the warehouse. I count 6 hostiles outside, probably double that inside. They're expecting 1 scared waitress, not a full assault team. Thermal imaging? Andre asked. Rico checked his equipment. 2 heat signatures on the 2nd floor, northeast corner. 1 smaller, probably Mia. The others standing guard. Snipers? Positioned and ready, boss. We've got clear shots on 4 of the exterior guards. Andre checked his watch. 11:54 p.m. He turned to Jenny. Last chance to stay here. My men can handle this. No. Jenny's voice was steady despite her fear. Mia needs to see a friendly face when we find her. She needs to know she wasn't abandoned. Andre studied her for a moment, then nodded. You stay behind me at all times. You do exactly what I say, when I say it. Understood? Understood. All right. Andre pulled out his gun, checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. Let's end this. They moved as a unit, Andre leading, Jenny close behind, 8 armed men surrounding them in formation. They approached from the south side, using cargo containers as cover. The exterior guards never saw them coming. Andre's snipers fired simultaneously, suppressed shots barely louder than coughs. 4 guards dropped silently. The remaining 2 barely had time to reach for their radios before Dante and Rico took them down. 6 hostiles eliminated without a single alarm raised. They reached the warehouse's loading dock. Andre signaled his men into position, then spoke quietly into his radio. Breaching. In 3, 2, 1. Andre. The door exploded inward. Chaos erupted. Cartel members scrambled for weapons, but Andre's team was faster, better trained. ruthless in their efficiency. Gunfire echoed through the cavernous space, short, controlled bursts that found their targets with lethal precision. Jenny pressed herself against a concrete pillar, her ears ringing, her body shaking with adrenaline. This wasn't like the movies. This was brutal, efficient violence. Men fell screaming. Others tried to surrender, only to be subdued and zip-tied. "Second floor, go," Andre commanded. Half his team split off, racing up the metal stairs. More gunfire, more shouting. Then Rico's voice on the radio. "Package secured. Hostages alive." Relief flooded through Jenny. Mia was alive, but the relief was short-lived. "Boss, we've got a problem," Dante yelled from across the warehouse. "There's a vehicle approaching SUV, moving fast." Through the broken windows, headlights carved through the darkness. The vehicle didn't slow down. It crashed through the warehouse's side entrance, metal shrieking, sending Andre's men diving for cover. The SUV's doors flew open, and more cartel members poured out, these ones better armed, better trained. Professional soldiers, not street thugs. "Reinforcements!" Rico shouted. "They knew we were coming." Andre's eyes narrowed. This wasn't random. Someone had anticipated their move. Then a voice echoed through the warehouse, amplified by a bullhorn. "Andre Moreno, we can do this the easy way or the hard way." From the SUV emerged a man in an expensive suit, tall, silver-haired, radiating authority. Behind him, 2 men dragged someone forward. Jenny's blood ran cold. It was Carl Vansetti. He was supposed to be in federal custody, but here he stood, bruised and bloodied but alive, with a gun pressed to his head. "Surprised?" The silver-haired man called out. "Let me introduce myself. Ramon Ruiz. Perhaps you've heard of me?" Andre's expression darkened. Ramon Ruiz was the cartel's regional commander, the man who gave orders, not took them. "Carl here has been very useful to us over the years," Ramon continued. "Reliable, profitable. And now your interference has cost us millions in lost revenue and 23 arrested soldiers. That kind of damage requires compensation." "Let the women go," Andre called back. "This is between us." "Oh, I will let them go, right after you watch them die." Ramon smiled coldly. "See, Carl told us everything about your little vendetta, about Isabella, about how you failed to save her 5 years ago, and now you're trying to redeem yourself with these waitresses. How very noble, how very stupid." Andre's jaw clenched. Beside him, Jenny could feel the rage radiating from him. "Here's what's going to happen," Ramon said. "You're going to order your men to stand down. You're going to walk out of here. And in exchange, I'll make their deaths quick, painless, even. Refuse, and I'll make sure they suffer for days before they die." "Counteroffer," Andre said calmly. "You release Mia and Jenny unharmed, and I'll let you walk out of here alive." Ramon laughed. "You think you're in a position to negotiate? I have 20 men and 2 hostages. What do you have? I have something better." Andre pulled out his phone, holding it up. "I have proof that Carl Vansetti didn't escape from federal custody. He was released by corrupt officials on your payroll. Officials whose names and badge numbers I've already sent to the FBI." Ramon's smile faltered. "I also have recordings of this entire conversation, currently being live-streamed to 3 different law enforcement agencies. And I have proof of every trafficking route, every safe house, every politician you've bought in the past 5 years." Andre's smile was razor-sharp. "You wanted compensation, Ramon? Here it is. Your entire organization is about to be dismantled. The FBI is probably surrounding this building right now. So the real question is, do you want to add murdering federal witnesses to your charges, or do you want to try negotiating a plea deal?" Right on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. Getting closer. Ramon's face twisted with fury. He pressed the gun harder against Carl's head. "Then he dies first." "Go ahead," Andre said coldly. "He's worthless to me. But those women? They're witnesses in a federal case. You kill them, you'll have every agent in the country hunting you. Your own cartel will throw you to the wolves to save themselves." Ramon hesitated, calculating, realizing the trap had been sprung but not the way anyone expected. In that moment of hesitation, Andre made his move. "Jenny down!" She dropped as Andre's snipers fired. 2 of Ramon's men fell. The warehouse exploded into gunfire again, but this time, federal agents were pouring through every entrance, tactical teams in full gear. In the chaos, Carl wrenched free from his captors and ran not toward the exits, but deeper into the warehouse, toward the back rooms where he'd once conducted his business. "Don't let him escape," Ramon screamed at his men. But they were too busy surrendering to federal agents. Andre took off after Carl, with Jenny against all logic following him. They found Carl in the basement, trapped in a dead-end corridor, wild-eyed and desperate. "Stay back!" Carl pulled out a knife, waving it threateningly. "I'll kill you both. You'll what?" Andre's voice was ice. "You're finished, Carl. The cartel is done. The FBI has everything. You have nowhere left to run. Then I'll take you with me." Carl lunged at Jenny, the knife aimed at her throat. She didn't freeze this time. She'd spent too many months being a victim. Jenny sidestepped, and Andre's fist connected with Carl's jaw. The knife clattered away. Carl fell hard, groaning. But before Andre could restrain him, another voice echoed through the basement. Carl Vanzetti. They all turned. Ramon Ruiz stood in the doorway, his suit torn, his face bloody, his own gun pointed not at Andre or Jenny, but at Carl. "You cost me everything," Ramon said quietly. "You were sloppy. You attracted attention. You got my men arrested." His finger tightened on the trigger. "The cartel doesn't tolerate failure." "Wait," Carl's voice broke. "We can work this out." "No," Ramon said. "We can't." The gunshot echoed through the basement. Carl Vanzetti collapsed, a bullet between his eyes, dead before he hit the ground. Ramon dropped the gun, raising his hands as federal agents swarmed into the room. "I surrender." As they dragged Ramon away, Andre turned to Jenny. "Are you hurt?" She stared at Carl's body, the man who'd terrorized her for months, now just a corpse on cold concrete. She waited to feel something, relief, satisfaction, closure. Instead, she just felt tired. "I'm okay," she whispered. "Is Mia?" "She's safe. Medical team is checking her now. She's going to be fine." Above them, boots thundered. Voices shouted orders. The nightmare was finally, truly over. Jenny looked at Andre, this dangerous man who'd become her protector, her unlikely savior. "You didn't kill him," she said. "You kept your word." "I told you," Andre replied quietly. "I don't kill for the wrong reasons. Carl's own people did this. Poetic justice." "Thank you," Jenny whispered. "For everything." Andre nodded once. "Let's get you out of here." As they walked toward the stairs, leaving Carl's body behind, Jenny realized something profound. She'd walked into hell and walked back out. She'd survived, and she'd never be that powerless, terrified woman again. 6 weeks later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of Jenny's new apartment, a real apartment in a safe neighborhood, with locks that worked and neighbors who smiled when they passed in the hallway. She stood in her small kitchen, making coffee, marveling at the simple normalcy of it all. No bruises, no fear, no monster waiting to hurt her, just peace. The federal case had wrapped up quickly. Ramon Ruiz and 14 of his associates had accepted plea deals in exchange for testimony against the rest of the cartel. The trafficking ring had been completely dismantled. Officer Rodriguez and Chen were serving 10-year sentences. And the 19 missing women? 12 had been found alive, rescued from various locations across 3 states. 7 were still missing, but Agent Morrison had promised she wouldn't stop looking. Mia had moved out of state, living with an aunt in Colorado while she recovered. She called Jenny every Sunday. They were both in therapy, working through the trauma, learning to sleep without nightmares. Healing was possible. Slow, painful, but possible. Jenny's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Corner of 5th and Main, 10 a.m. If you're interested. A.M." She smiled. Andre Moreno didn't do sentimentality, but his texts always came when she needed them most. Jenny arrived to find Andre standing outside a small storefront, hands in his pockets, looking almost relaxed in dark jeans and a leather jacket. "What is this?" she asked. "Your future, if you want it." He gestured to the building. "It's a community center. We're converting it into a safe house and resource center for women fleeing abuse. Legal aid, job training, counseling, temporary housing, everything you needed but couldn't find." Jenny stared at the building, then at Andre. "You're doing this?" "We're doing this. I'm funding it. You're running it." "What?" "Andre, I can't." "You can." His voice was firm. "You know what these women are going through. You know what they need. You know how the system fails them. Who better to help than someone who survived it?" Tears welled in Jenny's eyes. "I don't have any qualifications. I'm just You're a survivor. That's the only qualification that matters." Andre pulled out a folder, handing it to her. I've already hired a staff therapists, lawyers, social workers. You'd be the director. The face people see when they walk through that door. The proof that escape is possible. Jenny opened the folder, scanning the documents. Salary information, benefits, a real job with purpose and meaning. Why? She whispered. Why are you doing this? Andre was quiet for a long moment. Because I couldn't save Isabella. But maybe if this place had existed 5 years ago, she would have had somewhere to go. Someone to help her. He met Jenny's eyes. I can't change the past, but we can change someone's future. Jenny wiped her tears. When do I start? Andre's rare smile appeared. Whenever you're ready. 2 weeks later. The Bluebird Center named deliberately, reclaiming the space where Jenny's nightmare had begun opened on a Tuesday morning. Local news covered the story. Agent Morrison attended, giving a speech about community resources and protecting the vulnerable. Even the mayor showed up, eager to be photographed, supporting such a worthy cause. But the moment that mattered most came at 11:47 a.m., when a woman walked through the door. She was young, maybe 23, with a black eye and bruises on her arms. She clutched a small bag, her entire life probably contained in that worn duffel. Her eyes were the same as Jenny's had been months ago. Terrified, desperate, hopeless. Jenny approached slowly, gently. Hi, I'm Jenny. Welcome to Bluebird. I don't have money. I can't pay for anything. You don't need money. Everything here is free. We have rooms upstairs, hot meals, clean clothes, and we have people who can help, lawyers, counselors, whatever you need. The woman's lip trembled. My boyfriend said if I leave, he'll kill me. He has friends everywhere. I don't know where to go. You just found it. Jenny took her hand. You're safe now, I promise. Let me show you around. As Jenny led the woman inside, she caught Andre's eye. He stood in the back of the room, watching the scene unfold, surrounded by his men but somehow separate from the celebration. He nodded once acknowledgement, respect, pride. Then he slipped out the back door, disappearing like he always did. In the evening, the old diner had been purchased by a restaurant group and completely renovated. New owners, new staff, new energy. They'd kept the name The Bluebird but transformed everything else. Andre sat at the counter, same seat as always, drinking coffee. The new waitress, a cheerful woman in her 40s named Rosa, refilled his cup. You come here often? First time at the new place, Andre said. Well, welcome. Let me know if you need anything. As Rosa walked away, the door opened, and Jenny entered. She spotted Andre immediately and slid onto the stool beside him. Figured I'd find you here, she said. Couldn't resist. Wanted to see what they did with the place. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the dinner rush, the families laughing in booths, the normalcy of it all. I helped 3 women today, Jenny said quietly. 3 women who walked through our doors with nowhere else to go. We gave them rooms, connected them with lawyers, started safety plans. In one day, we changed 3 lives. That's what we built it for. No, Jenny corrected. That's what you built it for. I'm just the face. You're the one making it possible. Andre shook his head. You're wrong. I provided money and resources. You provide hope. And hope is worth more than anything I can buy. Jenny studied his profile, this complicated, dangerous man who'd saved her life without ever pulling a trigger on her behalf. You know what's funny? 6 weeks ago, I sat in this exact spot and asked you to kill someone. I was so desperate, so broken. I thought murder was my only option. And now? It's different because you saved me. Thanks for sticking with this story till the end. If you enjoyed it, you're going to love the next one. It's packed with unexpected turns and heartfelt moments. Click the image on your screen to keep the journey going, and make sure to hit subscribe for more amazing stories. Drop a comment and rate this story from 1 to 10. I can't wait to see what you think.